All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. Today is Thursday, March 19th, 2026, and the Detroit Lions have signed an edge defender. Just one, though. We're going to break down what it all means, what other moves the Lions have to make to fill their biggest positions of need, update you guys on some things that they've been up to since the last time we talked. We'll be honest, it's been a quiet week in free agency, but we're going to break down the moves that have and have not been made on today's episode of the Gridiron Gang podcast. Before we get to all that, I'm Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Richard Silva. Richard, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Like you said, it's been a little bit slow this week on the free agency front, but we're getting to the end of free agency and like about a month from the draft, or right on that edge where we're gonna I felt like for about a month we were like draft, especially with the combine, and then it was free agency, and then now we're gonna get back to the draft here probably within the next week or so.
It's a really weird way like that this time of year goes, because to your point, like when you're in that draft mode before free agency, all of your thought processes are predicated on what the team currently does not have.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like they can go out and they sign a guy to a 3-year deal, not Detroit. Well, I guess they did have him with a center position, but then all of a sudden they go out and they sign 2 or 3 guys to 3 or 4-year deals, and you're like, oh, well, that's solved. So
yeah,
I guess they don't need to draft this.
Right.
And so
they release a guy that has been the left tackle for 10 years, and now you have a gaping hole at a spot.
Yes, lots of things happening. But in any matter, I mean, the complexion of what a team needs and how the roster is set up to, I guess, welcome in those needs via the draft or whatever it is, drastically changes over this couple weeks' time. And draft kind of goes on the back burner. I know at the Detroit News, we typically do a weekly mock draft roundup, just being like, hey, here's who all the top experts that Rich and I like. Here's what they have projected the Lions to do. We've taken the last 2 weeks off of that because it just seems like things are moving so quickly that like either the mock drafts can't adjust or they just don't care. Like I've seen a lot of times where mock drafts be like, yeah, they signed this guy, but I think they're going to draft this guy anyways,
Right.
So I think next week is probably when Rich and I will start hitting the draft a little bit harder, assuming that there are no major moves left for the Detroit Lions to make. And we'll get to that because maybe there is an avenue or two to that happening. But I think generally speaking, next week, you and I are going to be hitting the draft hard again over the Detroit News and kind of making that transition, not just at DetroitNews.com, but also on the Gridiron Gang podcast. We're going to have start wrapping up the draft content here next week.
Absolutely. The Lions did, though, I want to call this a splash. I want to call DJ Wonnum a splash. But I think they fill the need. You know what I mean? It's a not nothing signing. I think this guy's going to be a starter for them, right?
Well, we should get into it. It's DJ Wonnum from the Carolina Panthers. Spent 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings. It's a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. We'll see what those numbers come out to be by the time that they are all said and done. Because, for example, another guy we're going to talk about later in this podcast, Rasheed Walker, the offensive tackle from the Green Bay Packers. It's announced earlier this week that his deal with the Carolina Panthers is 1 year, $10 million, and everybody's like, "Whoa, that's a steal!" And then the true figures come out today, and it's actually 1 year, $4 million, which is like an insane, drastic difference in terms of the salary cap and what a team can and can't do after making an acquisition of that type of player. Same thing applies here. We don't necessarily know how much of that $6 million is going to be guaranteed, how much of it is going to be made up of incentives on DJ Wonnum's contract, but that is a reporting right now, 1 year deal worth up to $6 million. And I think kind of like the Larry Borum signing, which we do have some details on that illustrated, maybe what the Lions think of him. I think this is going to be another one of those situations where once we get some of the details on it, then we'll know kind of where the Lions see it. But I'll let you get into some of the stats here and stuff like that in just a second. I think it's an upgrade from Marcus Davenport, which I think we'll talk about is probably all they were trying to do with this signing. I don't think they were trying to replace Marcus Davenport and Al-Quadin Muhammad with this one signing.
Well, I think Wonnum is a better run defender than pass rusher, but he can still provide some as a pass rusher. Like, since his second year, to remove his rookie season, and he was a 4th-round pick to Minnesota in 2020. Remove that year, for the last 5 years, he's been averaging about 34 pressures a season. He has 30 career sacks. He has 2 8-sack seasons. He's never had a season with fewer than 3 sacks. Granted, last year, I think it took him like 14 games to get a sack, so he kind of got hot towards the end to save that streak or whatever. But like I said, 30 career sacks for his career. I don't think he's gonna. I'm not expecting him to be a double-digit sack guy, but to your point about him being an upgrade over Davenport, me and you were having this discussion the other day, I think with some other reporters as well, that I think last year, like, Al-Quadin played well, but I still feel like they didn't take. I don't want to say they didn't take edge seriously, because I'm sure they tried, but I felt like they didn't adequately address edge, because Marcus Davenport was like your first and second down guy, and like that guy is your starter. Like Al-Quadin was more of a pass rush specialist, and I still think they need to replace that position. But the point that we were making to each other and that we agreed on was, yeah, Al-Quadin was great as a pass rush specialist, but the starter, like the guy that's going to play more on the edge than the pass rush specialist, was Marcus Davenport, and he got hurt, and when he was on the field, he struggled to produce. I think Wonnum is an upgrade over Davenport, so I think it's a good start, is how I'll put it. Like for the edge spot opposite Hutchinson. Like I think if they couple Wonnum with, whether it be in free agency, I mean, remember Al-Quadin was I don't know if he was quite a minimum guy, but he was close, either a minimum or close to a minimum signing last year. So maybe it's another guy like that this time around, or it's a guy in the draft in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, whatever it may be, or even the 1st round. A guy that is known for getting after the passer, and then you couple those two together, and then that's your edge opposite Hutch. So I think as long as the Wonnum acquisition comes with another acquisition, I 2 thumbs up from me personally.
I also I don't know that we can confidently say that this is the start of, a two-part acquisition, because you look at Muhammad and you say oh yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, we can clearly say Marcus Davenport, early down run stopping guy, Al-Quadin Muhammad, pass rush specialist. That is how things turned out to be. Nobody could have predicted that. And I think a lot, when we would talk about the edge rushers over the course of last season, it was kind of a weird thing to discuss, because there was a lot of nuance to it of yeah, they need to get somebody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, but they do have this guy opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and he's got 11 sacks. But I know if you gave them truth serum, that an 11 sack season was beyond their wildest dreams. He smashed his previous career high. He was 31 years old at the time. I just don't buy that. That was a pleasant surprise that they stumbled into in terms of the volume of the production. And so I don't necessarily know that they're going out there like in Moneyball being we got to replace 11 sacks. I don't think that that's their mindset, because I don't think they ever intended Al-Quadin Muhammad to do that in the first place. It just kind of happened.
We don't even need to give them truth serum. The fact that he had 11 sacks and they weren't willing to pay him, it was up to $6 million, but I think his base salary for the Bucs came out was $4 million. Then he's got $1 million and change in bonuses, so about $5 million. Let's call it. They didn't pay him $5 million, and they instead, we don't have the official numbers on Wonnum. They basically gave that money to Wonnum. So even they felt that Muhammad season, just by virtue of not being willing to pay him. And it's not like Muhammad left, at least from his perspective, it's not like Muhammad spurned the Lions' offer to go sign with the Bucs. In his introductory press conference in Tampa, Muhammad was like, yeah, I'm not quite sure why the Lions let me go. It sounded like he was willing to come back. You know what I mean? So they told us what they thought of Muhammad, to your point about, that he exceeded their wildest dreams, and maybe they thought it was a little bit fluky.
And back to Wonnum, I'm not anticipating outburst season over those things are not, you just can't predict them. But what I will say is that he has been so remarkably consistent rushing the passer over his career that I think you can kind of wonder what the ceiling of this 1-year deal might be. And I don't think it's going to be one of those things where it's oh my gosh, beyond wildest dreams. It wouldn't surprise me if he got to 10, 11 sacks. The half or 2 seasons he's had 8 sacks. There was a 3rd season in 2024. He was pacing to set career best in sacks and pressures, but he had a quad injury, and then the year prior, and then that interfered with his other season. So he had 4 sacks in 8 games in that season too. So in at least half his seasons, he was on pace or achieved an 8 sack season in half of his NFL career. So I don't necessarily think that that's outside of the realm of possibility that he matches or exceeds some career totals when he's playing opposite Aiden Hutchinson and over next to Aleem McNeil, who I know we're both higher on than the production that he showed last season. Levi Onwuzurike may be coming back, and you do have to watch the knee with him coming back. But I don't know. Like I don't feel like the Lions have solved anything because what was on the field last year was, I think, improper. I don't know if it's planning or just failure to properly fix that position. But I do think that they probably got better. Like
I said, I think
at least at the starting position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%, and the fact that I'm assuming. Well, I'm not just assuming. They only have 3 edge rushers on the team. They're going to add some other bodies there at some point, whether, like I said, through free agency or the draft. I just think as long as this, like I said, is coupled with another somewhat a guy that can get after the passer on third down, a designated pass rusher, I think it's good. One last thing I'll add on Wonnum is that I know he had a little bit of a health scare, and more about this than me, so if you want to describe it. But in 5 of his 6 seasons, he has played 14 or more games, which obviously has been a sensitive topic here in Detroit for the last few seasons. So that is encouraging to me as well, that he seems rather durable.
Yeah, he had some bacterial infection that stemmed from a quad surgery, and then there was something with the stitches weren't set in properly. It was actually very scary. It sounded like it threatened his life a little bit. So that was not necessarily an injury that kept him off the field in that 2024 season, but more so complications stemming from a surgery to fix a previous injury. So yeah. A couple other additions since the last time we spoke. Nobody too big. Nobody who we can confidently say this guy is going to be a starter for the Detroit Lions next season. However, they signed cornerback Roger McCreary from the Los Angeles Rams. He was a guy who was a former second-round pick, got traded at the deadline last year, has inside-outside versatility. I'm assuming is probably going to fill the, call it, Emmanuel Mosley role or whatever you want to cut, where it's like, all right, you'll compete for a job at nickel, and if you don't win it, then you're good depth.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think on one hand, I don't want to say concerning, because he, again, was another league minimum or close to league minimum contract. So it's kind of, it's a roll of the dice. Even if he doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. But I guess the concerning in the sense of why it could not work, why he could not be great, is, watching the Rams last year, what was everybody's take? It was oh my gosh, they need corners so bad. And yeah, he did get on the field for them a little bit, but he was not for a team that was desperate for corners, he was not the answer for them at corner. And given the moves that they made this offseason. But again, a guy that's making a little over $1 million this year, I think that it's a fine signing, especially if he's competing with Ennis Rakestraw and maybe the Bucks guy that they signed as well, Izzian, competing for reps in the nickel there, like you said, like Emmanuel Mosley was when he signed with the Lions. He was kind of competing with Robertson and Rakestraw for a couple of years there. I do think McCreary is a good run defender, which is especially important at nickel because you're closer to the ball. Obviously, he ranked in the top 20. He's ranked in 3 of his 4 seasons in the top 20 for run stops, and a run stop is a tackle that results in a failed play for the offense. He had 13 in 2023, so a couple of years ago. That was 6th in the league amongst cornerbacks. So I think he's a plus run defender, and then we'll see what he's able to do in coverage is how I'm thinking about it.
And the Lions have been pretty aggressive attacking this position specifically. Again, no major deals being thrown around. You kind of used up all your capital there when you gave DJ Reed $16 million, spent a first and second round pick on Terran Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. So I don't really have a problem with how they've attacked the cornerback group, especially because they brought back Rock Ya-Sin. And I know he was a guy who was very high on both of our lists for players that should be retained. And again, they did it a bargain. They had to give him a little bit of a raise. I think he was making something like 1.2 million last year, which is like crazy in hindsight because he started 6 games. It was probably the best corner in like defense that hangs corners out to dry. And it's just like, all right, man, it's all you. Go figure it out. And he started 6 games and was excellent in those 6 games. I think he had the lowest passer rating allowed among cornerbacks on the season. Like he was really, really good. And we don't yet know if there's a starting job open for him. And so between him and McCreary and then Christian Azine, who they picked up from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who probably profiles a little more like slot safety kind of guy. But I think ultimately I like what they've done in this cornerback room, given the investments that they've already made in it and kind of understanding, hey, this probably isn't going to be a position where you can invest, $5 to $10 million. But I think Rock Ya-Sin's deal was initially reported as 1 year, $4 million, ends up coming out to, I believe, 1 year, $3.2 million. And we talked to him the other day, coming back to Allen Park, being back with the Detroit Lions. And it was really funny because I think we were all, when you see a player like Rock Ya-Sin, who has played with 5 different teams in 5 years, there's a natural like assumption that player wants stability and like that is not his preferred choice. And so we're like, hey, like, does it feel good to like get to come back after a year with the team? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but I wasn't really sweating it. Like after every year, my past plays, like I was ready to go. Like I wasn't like, dang, they're not offering me a contract. So in a way, the Lions were kind of fortunate to be able to get Rock Ya-Sin back if he's telling the truth, which I am inclined to believe that he is. A high character guy.
Yeah, I think if he's CB3, you feel great about it. Even if he has to start some games like he did last year, he was their most consistent corner, in my opinion, of any of the guys that had to play consistently out there. But yeah, with Izien and then with McCreary, I do think there are going to be answers, especially at slot. Like I know obviously they lost to Meek, but between Ennis, Izien, and McCreary, one of those guys I think is going to take slot. Like Izien was good as a rookie, like in the slot. He went undrafted, but he was good with the Bucs when he played there, and then he ended up losing out on a training camp battle this past season, so he barely played. McCreary played mostly on the outside as a rookie, and then bumped inside for the past couple of years. And then Ennis, I understand like the frustration with Ennis. Because he hasn't played basically for 2 years. It's a 2nd round pick that you've essentially gotten nothing from. And he had injury concerns in college. That's why he slipped as far as he did. But he, if he didn't have the injury concerns, you're talking about a guy that's like maybe like a bottom of the first round like talent. And if he does like stay healthy, like all of a sudden you are injecting like a top 50 pick, so to speak, into the secondary. But I say that with the understanding of you can't count on him. But man, it would be really nice if he did stay healthy and lived up to the draft stock.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are kind of frustrated, maybe not with this position specifically, but I think this is a what has happened to this position group with Amik Robertson coming here on a budget deal, playing, well in the slot, maybe not as well outside, and then earning another deal, like retaining Amik Robertson at 2 years, 16 million or whatever it ended up being, because obviously those were the initial numbers that were reported. So I don't know what they actually ended up being, but retaining a player that you kind of found in the bargain bin just for the sake of like, oh, we like this guy, I think is bad business. And, one thing that we've given Brad Holmes credit for on this show is that a lot of his acquisitions are like pretty good. Like the majority of them, especially in free agency, have been hits. Like there's a couple that you can point to, obviously Cam Sutton, but that was, some off the field stuff, probably contributing to some on the field stuff. But I think for the most part, like the players that he's acquired, Roy Lopez, Meek Robertson, like all of those guys have left with more value than they came here with. And I know that it can be frustrating to kind of see those players walk out the door. Al-Quadin Muhammad's another one. A guy who came here, they literally signed him off the street. I don't think he played football for like 18 months when they signed him in the 2024 season. Comes here, they turn him into a beast. He has 11 sacks, and you just got to let him go because he's like being compensated for performance that he had in your system that he might not have in another place. And it's not entirely clear whether that's replicatable, especially for a player of his age or whatever. And so I think they've done a really nice job with the cornerback specifically, given what the infrastructure that they had in place and the resources that they have had available to them. And I'm still not ruling out the possibility of them drafting a defensive back. And the draft is so weird for them this year because they don't have a third round pick, which like feels like an eternity. Like it's like two completely different sides of the draft. On the first and second side, you're like, oh, these guys are going to be stars, whatever. And then like after you come out of that valley, it's like we don't have any idea what any of these players are going to be, how many picks Brad Holmes is going to use to trade up for them, yada, yada, yada. So I think they've done a good job. Long story long, I think they've done a good job with the cornerback group.
I think another guy that they're taking, I guess flyer on is probably the right word, right? Like Roy Lopez, Rocky Sin, Amik Robertson. Amik Robertson got like $4.5 million a year, so like a little bit less of a flyer when he originally got to Detroit.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The money that he got in Washington is pretty real. I think his cap hit is like 5 this upcoming year and then 10 the year after that. So like seven and a half. But it's that's pretty much what he got. But I think another guy that I
like my mug. I heart New York.
Nolan's mug says I heart New York. Thank you.
I'm drinking out for you, baby.
I appreciate that. Tyler Conklin at tight end, I think is another guy that you could put in the flyer bucket.
Bro's tongue-tied.
that they're not spending a ton of money on, but I think there is potential upside and potential for him to, like you said, leave Detroit with more value than he came in with.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Like, did not fully appreciate the production that he had with the Jets and in his last year with the Vikings. Local kid, too, by the way, Lance Cruz North. Shout out the Macomb Athletic Conference. Went to Central Michigan, played college basketball at Northwood. This guy is all Michigan. Did not grow up a Lions fan, though. Said he grew up a Bears fan because his dad was a Packers fan.
Opposite.
He grew up a Packers fan because his dad was a Bears fan. And him and his cousins just wanted to make him mad, which is very funny little kid stuff. But if that, were to happen to me, I'd probably cry. So,
yeah.
Anyways, back to Tyler Conklin's receiving production.
Like you said, I didn't fully appreciate the 4-year stretch that he had from 21 to 24, his final year in Minnesota, and then his next 3 years with the Jets. Over that 4-year time frame, he ranked 8th among tight ends and catches, 12th in yards, and he was tied for 23rd in touchdowns with 10. But the 8th in receptions and 12th in yards, like whatever, put it together. Was a set for a 4-year run, was about a top 10 tight end production wise in the league. That I was, I didn't know that. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know he was balling like that for 4 years.
I did not know either. He just catching 60 passes a year for 4 years.
Yeah, he averaged like 55 catches or 60 catches, whatever it was. For
57.8 for those 4 seasons.
Right. Did have a down year last year when he signed a 1-year deal to LA, and it was interesting to me because I looked at what he got from the Chargers last year because he was coming off that 4-year stretch where he was, hooping for 4 years, and he only got 1 year, $3 million from the Chargers. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why his market was as low as it was coming off that stretch, especially, maybe it was like, maybe people thought it was like cheap inflated stats because the Jets were not very good. And like, who else were they going to throw the ball to? But it was not good in Los Angeles. The $3 million he got, albeit not high, he didn't even match that production. He caught 7 passes for 101 yards and no touchdowns over 13 appearances. He had more touchdowns in 2024 than he had first downs in 2025. So definitely definitely a step back. But I think from talking to him the other day, he said that he's basically never been more motivated to prove once again that he is not only a tight end in the league, but like a borderline starting caliber tight end in the league.
Which is huge because for the last couple of years, and now this is out of the norm, like tight end 3 is not normally a name brand recognizable pass producer, but in the past, like they haven't really had a clear cut tight end 3. Shane Zylstra has been that kind of guy who is a good pass catcher and things like that. But I think for the most part, it's been a lot of blocking guy. Like it's either been one or the other. Whereas I think, Tyler Conklin brings not just receiving intrigue, but like legit receiving production in his not so recent past. So
yeah, I mean, with the 3 of them, with Laporta, Wright, and Conklin, I definitely feel better about the tight end room today than I did before he signed. You know what I mean? Like you said, I think it raises the floor for, at the very least, tight end 3. And to put a little context on the down year that he had. He explained a little bit why from his perspective, why he felt that he was not used as he wanted to be used in Los Angeles. He played 169 snaps on offense. That was his least since his rookie year last year in Los Angeles. And he said from his perspective that the Chargers valued specialization from their tight ends. And it was like, Tucker Fisk, Will Diskley, those were the blockers. Rookie Aronde Gadsden II from Syracuse, he was the pass catcher. And like, he prides himself on doing a little bit of everything. And he said basically like he was, what's it called? All trades. What's that saying?
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. He that's how he fancies himself, and that the Chargers were not looking for a jack of all trades. They were looking for somebody that could be a master of one at these specific skill sets. So that's why he said why he couldn't really find a role in Los Angeles. Of course, that's his perspective, but it makes sense, especially when you look at a guy like Gadsden, who Gadsden very much so is like a receiving tight end. Like he's skinny. He's like he started as a receiver in college, a little bit like San Gilstro. Like played receiver in college, but he was really productive for them last year. But as a pass catcher, he wasn't doing a lot of blocking in Los Angeles last year.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I think is important to note as we contextualize that is that on the NFLPA 2026 report card, the Los Angeles Chargers offensive coordinator Greg Roman received a D-, which was tied for the second worst grade in the league.
And we know that Petzing, that he said he used 3 tight end sets more than anybody over his 3 years in Arizona. And then when he got asked about it here in Detroit, he's like, well, it's personnel. Like, if I have the personnel to do it, sure, I'll do it. But if I don't have the personnel to do it, then I won't do it. But at the very least, he has a track record of using and valuing tight ends, and they do have overlap together. They spent 2 years together in Minnesota. Granted, Petzing was not his position coach; he was the assistant quarterbacks coach in 2018, and then the wide receivers coach in 2019, while Conklin was there as the tight end. But they do have some overlap, and I'm assuming some familiarity with one another.
As an aside here, it is kind of funny how much Petzing has pushed back against this.
He has, yeah.
I'm thinking, like, you think I love tight ends? No, I really don't, man. Like, I swear, like, that's my friend's tight end. I was just holding it for him, Like, you just, like, really, really wants the world to know that, like, he's not as tight end crazy as everybody thinks he is.
Sure, yeah. But
which is amusing.
I mean, it is
because the league is going that way. Like, he's
right.
not, like, it's not like this crazy thing that nobody followed. Like,
sure,
the league is kind of moving in that direction.
And I would anticipate he is going to use less because, like, yeah, the Lions personnel does slant receiver. Like, I think you want Isaac Tesla on the field over Brock Wright or Tyler Conklin. But I do expect them to use it. I would expect the Lions to use tight ends more than average, is how I'll put it. I don't know if they're going to be top 5 in the league, but I think they will be in the top half of the league.
Yeah. Wide receiver Tom Kennedy is coming back. The longest tenured Detroit Lion, tied for the longest tenured Detroit Lion.
By a few months, he's got Jack Fox beat by like 6 months.
Got him beat by a few months. A guy who has just stuck around, whether that be practice squad, the active roster, whether that be injured reserve. There was one year where he messed up his collarbone, I think it was, in training camp. And just the second he got healed, bam, he's right back with the Detroit Lions. So a guy that we know that they love, in somebody who stepped up at several points last year. And I thought was really impressive as a receiver, which we don't get to see a lot from him, at least consistently anyways. So, this kind of made all the sense in the world. He's probably won't even be projected to make the 53-man roster, but he will be there hanging around waiting for his opportunity.
You say that, but I do wonder, with Khalif Raymond out the door, and they need a punt returner, and he did decent when Khalif got hurt, and then was their best. He was their most explosive kick returner last year when given the opportunity.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to make the team this year in that wide receiver 4 role.
Sure. And my only thing would be, I don't think they're done adding. Like, I think they're going to go out. Like, there's a lot of good, like,
Greg
speedy
Dortch.
Young receiver. Yeah, Greg Dortches of the world out there. So maybe as it stands right now, like, he definitely has a chance. But again, in free agency, things change in the blink of an eye. And I would anticipate the Lions continuing to chip away at that, because they do need to find a new punt returner. And I don't think they're just going to hand it to Tom Kennedy or be like, all right, Tom Kennedy and Dominic Lovett,
fight.
You got to add some more competition in there, I think. So
a quick aside, I was shocked. I don't know if you saw the Calvin Austin signed with the Giants, the former Steelers receiver and kick
Mhm.
returner, punt returner. Do you know what his cap hit is? I thought that he was going to get more money than this. Did you see what his cap hit is? It's 1.5.
No.
I was like, geez, like that, kind of Khalif Raymond-esque 5 years ago, like his in terms of receiver production and what he was able to do as a returner. So I was surprised he didn't get a little bit more than 1.5 million.
I would say way more like fame, notoriety, or whatever.
Right. I mean, Khalif Raymond, like after 2 years in Detroit. You're correct. That like Khalif Raymond was a journeyman like before he arrived in with the Lions. Right. Correct. But I mean, through in his second and third years in with Pittsburgh, he had like 900 yards. Like he was averaging like 400, 500 yards, 7 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. Like that's a wide receiver 4 that can return kicks and punts. And I thought he would have gotten more than 1.5, but.
That's kind of why I expect the Lions to add there, is you can find good value.
Absolutely.
And that like actually has front-facing production that excites people. So last one we got to get to here in terms of additions and retention since last week. Linebacker Trevor Nowaski is coming back to the Lions. Backup Sam, undrafted free agent from Saginaw Valley, another local kid. Wait, let me check the high school. It's either, I don't want to say the wrong one. Eggs and bacon. Go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say impactful special teamer as well. He played the second most special team snaps for them last year at 329, trailing only Grant Stewart, who we'll get to in a moment as one of the exits. Me and you were talking the other day about like
Salem.
Salem.
Yes. I was going to say camp. That would have been bad.
You and I were talking the other day about like potential special teams captains now that Grant Stewart and, like I said, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Grant Stewart and Al-Quadin Muhammad as the exits here in a second. But now that they do have a special teams captain role available, I think Malcolm Rodriguez would probably be like my leader in the clubhouse, who's also back, but he returned, and we talked about him last podcast. Trevor Nowaski, though, I think he might be up there as well. He's been as used as anyone on special teams over the last few seasons. And like maybe if they don't give it to Malcolm or Trevor, they just give it to like Jack Fox because he's been here for so long. But they've given it to Germ all those years and then gave it to Stewart last year. So I would lean that they probably give it to like a linebacker that plays on special teams, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nowaski, I mean, kind of like the gritty, hard-nosed guy that you look for in a special teams captain. Again, went from undrafted. Lions loved him here. He ends up going on waivers. The Cardinals claim him. Lions are pissed. They claim him right back. They get him back in the building, and they make it a point to keep him around. So very cool story, and nice guy too. Not that really matters for the people at home who are rooting for wins and losses, but nice guy, Trevor Nowaski.
Yeah, he's cool. Also, that I think they've made it like a point to invest in his development a little bit. Like I just remember him like wearing the green dot in the preseason last year. Like, you know what I mean? Like putting him in different roles in different positions. And he did have like some impacts in some games. The Ravens game is the one we always go back to because he had the sack on Lamar. I'm curious. Yeah.
Just unshook. Like Lamar was trying to shake him and he's like, no,
yeah,
you're not that guy, pal. I'm Trevor Nowaski. You're going down. 3-time MVP. 2-time MVP, whatever it is.
I would expect them to make another addition somewhere this offseason at linebacker, but as it currently stands, like either Malcolm or you're going to move Derek Barnes into Alex Anzalone's role. Like one of those two guys is going to play Alex Anzalone's role, and like all of a sudden Trevor Nowaski like moves up a spot, like he's linebacker 4, and like if Barnes is going to shift back into more of an off-ball role, like maybe he does get more Sam reps. I think that is not that would not be ideal, but I think he's higher on the depth chart going into this year than he has been in years past.
What's interesting is that if you don't replace Alex with a similar type of player, you kind of have to like make drastic changes to the scheme because
go play more nickel. Like
yeah, you can't just be like Malcolm Rodriguez, go play man.
Yeah, like yeah, I mean Malcolm is better at run defense than he is in pass coverage, and Barnes is in college he rushed the passer a lot, and then in the NFL we've seen like he's a better run defender and pass rusher than he is in coverage. Granted, he has that pick against Baker in the playoffs to send him to the NFC Championship game, but that man coverage is not his game. That's Alex Anzalone's game. So yeah, I agree that like.
Also, I think that was zone coverage when he made the pick anyway. So.
Right, exactly.
If I recall correctly.
But yeah, I don't think you could put either in those guys in the same position that you put Alex in last year because Alex has such a unique skill set. So I would assume that if they don't add a guy this offseason that can just as a one-to-one replacement for Alex, I do think that would signal more nickel alignment or more nickel deployment this year.
Yeah. Also a position they could attack in the draft. But again, if you don't get one of the first 2 rounds, and you're like, all right, well, we're rolling dice on whether this guy's going to be able to start this year.
Yeah.
So, kind of a precarious situation there. Let's get into some departures real quick after a quick word from our sponsor.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back, generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service. So you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, segment 2 here at the Gridiron Gang podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please do us a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Help the podcast grow. If you're enjoying yourself, hanging out with us, we really appreciate it. We should get into some departures because the Lions have lost a couple players in the last week or so. Al-Quadin Muhammad, who we talked about, signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like we have exhausted all of the Al-Quadin Muhammad chatter. But he rejoins teammate, friend, 2017 New Orleans Saints draft class member Alex Anzalone in Tampa Bay, and we'll see what the full. What did you say that the full contract details are out yet, or is it still up to $6 million?
I don't know. Let me see.
Gotcha.
I did. I was looking at his over the cap earlier. It was $4 million in base salary and other bonuses.
No,
so the full contract is not in yet, but it's 1.25 and other bonuses. So in the ballpark of $4 to $6 million. Call it $5 million. Yeah, I think like you said, we've exhausted the Al-Quadin Muhammad conversation. It is cool that him and Alex are together because I just remember last year, I think it was in Minnesota when Al-Quadin broke the double-digit sack marker, and I think it was early in that game that he brought down Brosmer. And I just remember like Alex Anzalone. I don't know why like this would surprise me because like you said, I guess I just didn't put it in my brain like draft classmates and like have been on the same team for a few years now. Alex Anzalone was like came sprinting over to him and like jumped on his back and was like smacking his helmet. I was like, dang, Alex is really happy for Al-Quadin. And then I was like, oh, that's why. So yeah, cool that they're going to be on the same team again.
Yeah, and the season was on the line. Probably had something to do with it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Grant Stewart, we just talked about him as well. I don't want to call his Lions tenure disappointing, because I don't think we at any point projected that he would be anything more than a special teamer, but he did, when he came in, say that he was anticipating getting the chance to play some defensive snaps. Unfortunately for him, that just turned out to be, I think, the healthiest position group on the Lions this year. And so he didn't get many opportunities to do that. I want to look up the snap counts before I say, but I want to say it was 13 defensive snaps last year. 13 defensive snaps, that is correct. So that is almost a career low. Basically, there was only 1 year where he had 0 in Indy. And I kind of thought as like a Jalen Reeves-Maybin replacement, really intriguing guy on defense. But again, they just didn't really need him. And I also think it's a little bit telling that guys like Trevor Nowaski and Zach Cunningham were getting more defensive opportunities than him. Maybe that's load management. I don't know, but kind of felt like they were telling us what they thought of him as a defender with that deployment.
He did have a career high in special team snaps, and that was, like you said, I think maybe we expected a little bit more on offense, but we knew from the jump that he was signed primarily for special teams. So I mean, he did that, and he'll be a good trivia question when you ask who returned the opening kickoff in the 2025 NFL Hall of Fame game in the preseason. Grant Stewart is the answer.
That's
subplot
for us, right? Like we're watching it, Grant Stewart's a really interesting guy from our perspective. He's returning kicks, it's like, wow, this could be really fun and interesting. And then he fumbles the first one, and like that's all any Lions fan remembers about him. And to be quite honest, I think that like taints the overall perspective on his tenure here, because that's just like such a big thing that people remember. Because how many kicks did he return in the regulars? Did he return any?
I believe he at least returned. Let me double check before.
Yes, he had 3 kick returns. That's what I thought. And people are just mad. Let's stop giving this guy the ball.
Fair.
I'd be lying if like during those kick returns, every kick return he had after that, every time he got hit, I would like cringe because I'm like, ugh. Like I'm just expecting him to fumble. You know what I mean? He talked about that after the Hall of Fame game that he said like he had never done that before. He had never returned kicks. I'm pretty sure at like any level. And he talked about like he put so much like time and effort and like, all right, like catching the ball, like making sure I don't muff this thing. He was like, and it makes sense because like in practice, like you're not really like sprinting down the field and like aiming to like hurt each other. Of course, there are some periods that will go live, but like it's not you're never going to really recreate in game. But he said that like he didn't really think about like I got to work on being tackled with the ball in my hands. Like I've never really had to do that. Like I've never had to get hit and protect the ball. So it made sense, his explanation. He never fumbled again after that in his defense. But yes, it was on my mind every time he had the ball in his hands after that.
Same, but I would imagine that from a fan standpoint, it's just like nauseating being like, can we just get a wide receiver back there, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some needs remaining because as we mentioned at the top of the show, the Lions have done some work attacking their top positions of need, but I think every single one of them in one way or another could use a little bit more work. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive tackle, a little piece of news that came across the wire since the last time we talked. Larry Borum's contract, $5 million, which we said that would tell us a lot about what the Lions thought of him. And I think that tells us that they're probably done adding offensive tackles until the draft.
That to me was because he started 11 games last year, and that contract is the quintessential could start if we need him. Like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, probably not plan A.
Could start if Freeling isn't at 17.
Yeah, probably isn't plan A. Plan A, I would assume, is they're really hoping that one of the tackles falls to them at 17. But in the event one does not, I think they would feel okay putting Borum there. But like I said, I can't imagine that would be plan A. And if they do get a tackle that they like at 17, whether that's Freeling or Blake Miller or Fanu falls or something like that, I think then all of a sudden you feel pretty good at tackle. Like, oh, like we got three guys that like we feel good. Like if they got to get on the field, then they can get on the field. But the canyon between you feel pretty good if you got three guys versus you only got two, and one of them didn't even start 17 games last year and like wasn't a full-time starter. Like it's large. So what happens in the draft will be impactful for how we feel about that tackle position. But I agree with you. I think they're done in free agency at tackle.
Which is just interesting because I think anybody who's watched football, studied off season, like just like trends, like even from like the most casual perspective would say, okay, Lions are drafting an offensive tackle now. And I understand like ahead of time, they're never going to like reveal like, yeah, we're really interested in offensive tackles this draft. So, but I think it's so funny that they fight so hard against this idea of like, yeah, they're going to need an offensive tackle, so they're going to go get an offensive tackle. When this year, that is clearly the direction that they're going. And if they don't draft an offensive tackle, then they should be rightfully skewered for like the way that they handle things. So, I mean, and I think there's an argument to be made regardless. Like, what if you're sitting there at 17, you're like, man, this tackle that we love is going to fall to us. But the entire world knows that you need a tackle, which is something that you've repeatedly said that you are not going to like give away or signify or anything like that. And they just jump right in front of you and take the one you want. So I don't know, because I don't think that they can, the problem is, I don't think that they can afford to, they can't afford to give up assets to move up for a guy they like. So they're just kind of at the whim at 17, which is a lot better than being at the whim of the other people at 28, but still a lot of picks to go. And the offensive tackles, I think since the combine have started rising up the board a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel confident about them being able to get one that they want. You know, like there are going to be guys who they can take, guys who fall at that range, but that is a player they don't like.
That is one thing I will say. I think, yes, like if they walk out of day one of the draft without a tackle and it appears that Borum is going to start at one of the tackle spots opposite Sewell, especially coming off the season that was last year. Yeah, like I think that there would be deserved criticism. I do genuinely believe they won't draft someone like let's say they don't like Caden Proctor. I don't think they'll force a Caden Proctor pick. I think they'll draft TJ Parker or whoever else and then deal with the consequences of tackle after that, which doesn't make it any better or worse. But I do believe that they're not going to force a pick at 17. If any, let's say they have 4 guys at tackle where it's like, all right, if one of these guys is there at 17, we'll draft them. If one of those 4 guys isn't there, I do think they will start Bourne.
Yeah. And I think the fan base will be very, very mad about that. And I think rightfully so. Yeah. Rightfully so. Interior offensive line, they signed Cade Mays. That was pretty much, I don't know if that came through the mic, but that was me cleaning off my hands to say that we're done here, folks. I still think the Lions could continue to add interior offensive linemen, but it will be all bargain bin signings kind of in the realm of what we've seen with some of these defensive backs so far. They also have Juice Scruggs. And they just kind of continue to add like these, like, oh, has started before.
Sure.
Probably don't want to start him here, but could do it in theory. I would expect them to continue kind of stocking that. And again, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go interior offensive lineman very early in the draft. You and I have talked about the possibility of, what if they're sitting there at 17 and all the tackles that they like are gone and all the defensive ends that they're like are gone. Which actually, I mean, let's take the defensive end out of the equation because we know they're not just going to draft an edge rusher just for the sake of it. And their top-rated player is Ione Vega from Penn State. And you're like, man, between Cade Mays, Tate Ratledge, and Vega, you could shore up the offensive line for the next 5 to 10 years, or 5 years, whatever it is. I think that's very intriguing as well. So would not rule out more bargain bin additions, and also would not rule out further additions in the top 2 rounds of the draft.
I think ideally maybe they could have this offseason like added more veteran competition for like Mahogany and or Frazier at left guard, whether that be like Wyatt Teller or like Batonio if he does leave Cleveland. He has to decide if he's playing, and then if he's going to leave Cleveland. Like, I think if this was the 2024 offseason and they only had 2 holes and they filled those holes rather quickly, like maybe they could have added somebody. But given the holes kind of all over the place, I would not expect them yet to add like a guy where it's like, wow, like that guy like really could start for them. I do think though that like, I think you have 5 guys that you feel like confident are probably going to make this team in the 2 deep with Mahogany, Ratledge, Mays is who I would predict is probably going to be the starters. And then behind them, Frazier and Scruggs. I think those are 5 guys that like you feel confident just having on your 53-man roster. So I think maybe like I could see like one more like guard addition at some point this offseason. To your point of whether that be the draft or a bargain bid in free agency. But they do still have like Michael Neese, Colby Sorsdahl, Mason Miller, Seth McLaughlin, like guys that you don't feel great about. But if one of those 4 guys becomes your 6th interior offensive lineman, it's like, all right, fine.
Yeah, and some of that group is like still intriguing. Like Seth McLaughlin, is a guy who hasn't played. I think he missed all of his undrafted rookie season with an injury. Is that correct?
I think he got hurt at Ohio State. Was playing well at Ohio State, got hurt.
Oh, gotcha.
And then went undrafted because of it, and then was on the practice squad with the Bengals.
Gotcha. Okay.
Still, yeah,
interesting guy. Who has like some runway to grow. Michael Neese, I think he's been around for a minute, so maybe we think of his like potential as being like not quite there, but also we don't get to ever see him in action. So maybe he's looking good in practice or whatever it may be. I think this time last year, like we were still kind of wondering / expecting them to just kind of continue adding interior offensive linemen. I know a lot of people wanted like Will Hernandez and guys like that. So wide receiver, I think. Or go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I was going to talk on wide receiver. I thought you were lobbing me up to talk.
I was. Yeah.
I think it's the Khalif role, right? It's the wide receiver 4, and I think Greg Dortch, who we mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's dwindling a little bit because like the Calvin Austins of the world, the Devin Duvernays of the world, like have already been signed to affordable and air quote affordable contracts. But Dortch is still out there, and if it's not Dortch, then it'll be Kennedy or Lovett. But I think out of all the Lions' needs that still exist, maybe there's like 7 or 8 of them. This is probably 7 or 8 on the list in terms of priority.
And I'm still intrigued by Lovett. He had a pretty good training camp. I think he was like off and on injured that really derailed his progress, and I think he had a bad drop in that Chargers game pretty early on. But through the first couple weeks of training camp, I would say up to the Hall of Fame game, we were all kind of watching like, interesting. This guy's catching a lot more passes than Isaac Tesla, and just the idea that we knew he could play gunner, that we knew he had some potential as a returner, I think makes him still pretty intriguing going into this year, or at least as intriguing as a 7th round pick can possibly be.
Agreed. Like it's in front of him. You know what I mean? If he can take it,
you just got to go out there and take it.
Yeah.
Grab that brass ring, Dominic Lovett. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive end, we've talked about this extensively. They got 3 edge rushers. They also have like 4 guys who could, in theory, play on the edge. The edge rushers being Hutchinson, Wonnum, and Hassanin, and then some of those versatile hybrid guys who aren't really hybrid guys. They just like kind of played out there out of necessity. Ali McNeil, like never played edge in his life, and then they came back from the ACL and they were like, all right, man, go out there and, be Marcus Davenport. And Tyler Lacey, Levi Onwuzurike is another guy who actually I think is the most intriguing like inside-outside defender that they have because of his production when the rest of the defensive line was healthy in that 2024 season. So I don't know, where are you at with this group? We know that they got to add at least one more. I would assume that they're going to add one in the draft, but again, after last year where they just went to the 6th round, not addressing what was arguably their biggest need in terms of the depth that they had relative to other positions. They just stubbornly did not take one. And it was a huge point of contention among the fan base, as well as with the media and general manager Brad Holmes on draft night. So I'm not really ready to predict that they're going to draft an edge rusher in the upcoming draft. And we'll just have to see what happens, I guess. And I really do think that the majority, if they draft an edge rusher, cool. Like that's a nice little cherry on top. But at this point, I don't really expect them to do that because it feels like they have really high standards for the exact type of player that they want on the edge.
Right. I'm anticipating an or 2 additions at the edge in the offseason, but they might not come via the draft. Like it might be just like 2 minimum guys. You know what I mean? Like they need to fill out the room, but yeah, I'm not penciling in a draft pick at edge or a top 5 round or top 4 round draft pick at edge. I'm not putting that in pen.
Yeah. And because even like I know that you and I were texting, and there's a lot of like run defense first kind of guys like Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker. But I was texting, I was like, man, it's kind of hard to just like get even a little bit excited about some of these edge rushers because it's just like they don't play the run very well, and the Lions probably won't draft him for that exact reason. Like Cassius Howell, I was like, man, I like Cassius Howell, but like, what am I even doing spending my time watching him when he's probably not going to get drafted by them? I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. Defensive tackle. What do you think?
I think, well, Tyleik and Aleem are obviously going to be the starters, but they lost Roy, and DJ Reader is still out there, hasn't been re-signed yet. We don't know if that means that he, that doesn't necessarily say anything about his market. Like he's a veteran guy. Like we've seen veteran guys wait till after the draft, or heck, even sometimes like up into training camp to sign. So he could potentially be brought back, be had, but I think they do need to add to that position. Ideally, like I think it would come in the draft, but again, we're talking about like this could come in the draft, this could come in the draft, this could come in the draft. They only have 2. They don't have that 3rd round pick, and like you said, it's kind of a roll of the dice after the top 100. A guy that I've liked for a while was Grayson Holton from Oklahoma. So I'm saying that name now on March 18th, so that when and if the Lions do draft him in 5 weeks, I can say I successfully predicted a Silva star.
Nice. And you got one this year, right?
Yeah, it was Cade Mays.
Oh, so that almost doesn't even count. Top center available. That doesn't count.
So for the record,
the only tier 2 center available in free agency, you thought he'd be a good fit for the Detroit Lions. You know what? Hand up to you. It's like who man, last year in training camp, you're like, you know what? I think this Terran Arnold guy might be poised for a good second year. And I'm like, the former 1st round pick? You think so?
Anyway, for the record, my full list of my little Silva stars was Nick Chubb, Brian Robinson, who after Pacheco, they're not going to sign either of them. Greg Dortch, which is why I mentioned his name twice on the podcast. Austin Hooper has been signed. Durham Smythe, I believe, has been signed. Cade Mays to the Lions, Wyatt Teller to the Texans. Kelvin Beacham's still out there, but I think they're done at tackle. Cam Jordan, but after Wonnum, I think it'd be a little bit redundant in skill sets, so probably not going to happen. Chidobe Awuzie, I think signed already. Rasul Douglas, I'm not sure if he did, and Akeem Davis Gaither. So really, Akeem Davis Gaither, the linebacker, is kind of my last hope to get a second name on this list. So I'm holding out hope there. Played a good bit of man coverage in his career, so we'll see.
Okay, all right. How much did you get last year?
Don't worry about it.
None.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry, I was just trying to help the people at home keep score. So, linebacker.
People at home keep score.
Don't you get started with me, young man. All right, linebacker. What have we got here?
Well, like we said earlier, right? Where I think as it stands currently, like Malcolm Rodriguez is a starter for this team in Alex Anzalone's role, just because they don't have a one-to-one Alex Anzalone replacement. Now, could they, like we said, play more nickel, and maybe that makes the third linebacker position a little bit obsolete? Maybe, but I do think they need somebody with a little bit more man coverage skill set, maybe like a Davis Gaither, like I just mentioned. Get me on the board again. But I mean, I wouldn't expect like a DJ Wonnum level signing here. Like I don't think they're going to spend upwards of $5+ million on a linebacker as a replacement here. But I am expecting, like I said, at other spots, like at receiver, like at edge, I am expecting another player acquired this offseason at this position.
Yeah, and then safety, we mentioned Azine at the top of the episode there. He does have some experience at safety. They do still have Thomas Harper. Both those guys are expected to be healthy and ready to go as it stands on March 18th. But with the uncertainty to Kirby Joseph and with the uncertainty to Brian Branch, both those guys who we don't know if they're going to be ready for the start of the season, I think you got to add one more. Like not, probably bargain bin, but somebody with like starting experience at ideally. Because I don't think you can plan for either of those guys to be ready for the season, especially Branch. And so like, I feel like you almost need to pretend, which is impossible because Kirby Joseph make $20 million a year, which complicates the ability to find people. But I think there is a need to get like another competent player with like a recent history of being good.
I think if they could bring back Avonte Maddox, I'd feel pretty good about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Someone like him.
But I don't think you can have Dan Jackson be safety 3 at this current point in time.
Sure.
So, all right. Let's get into some other news before we get to keep 4, cut 4. We're going to end the show there. Former Lions quarterback Darius Slay retires after 13 seasons, 7 with the Lions. I still remember where I was when he got drafted. I found out via, I don't know. This is back. So back in the day, cell phones, they didn't used to have internet on them. Right?
You
couldn't just like access.
You heard this. You heard the Morse code coming in. Is that how they communicated back when you were young?
Yeah, pretty much. No, I just remember I was at my like younger sister's softball game and I got a text and I was like, okay, sweet, Lions got a corner, and they really they've been struggling.
Boy, did they get
in the desert.
Boy, did they get a corner. They certainly did.
Yeah.
An all-pro.
Fantastic career for Darius Slay. Let me just pull up some of these accolades here. 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, got his first Super Bowl in 2023 with the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the more entertaining people like you'll ever come across, and I think one of the more entertaining Lions of the century, I guess you could probably make the argument, who just had a great career, and like he kept going, and I know that like I think kind of around the time that he left, he was still playing at a high level, but I think there was like a common sentiment of like, okay, this guy's about to be like starting to get old now. But then he goes to Philly. He has 3 more Pro Bowl seasons, wins the Super Bowl, and then plays in Pittsburgh last year. I think he got put on waivers at some point towards the end of the season, claimed by Buffalo, and then he just was like, I'm not coming. Yeah. Which I don't blame him for. If you're 35 and you get put on waivers, I'm done. Sayonara.
Well, I was going to say I was a little bit surprised. We know Buffalo lost in their pursuit of the Super Bowl, but I was like, I don't know, dang, if you were trying to win another Super Bowl, Buffalo seems like a pretty good spot to do it. But like
you want to move up to Buffalo for November and December? No.
Just a couple months.
I don't even get to experience the summer. Niagara Falls. The falls are frozen.
It's true. They would be. He had 8.
I don't think that's true. Did the
Surely.
falls freeze?
Sure,
They move too
surely.
fast to freeze. There's no way.
Bro, it'll snow like 3 feet in Buffalo.
Doesn't matter.
Well, you Google that. Darius Slay had 8 interceptions that one year. He was an All-Pro in 17. He ranked 17th in Lions history for interceptions in the Lions uniform. He had 19 with them, and then he went on to have 9 more with Philly, so 28 total in his career. So definitely not a bad career for the former. What was he? Was he second rounder? Do I recall correctly?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
for the former second rounder.
Mm-hmm. So the falls haven't truly frozen over since 1848.
Interesting.
I think it's just too much ice or not too much ice, but
force.
Too much force. Synergy.
What's it called? Convection, like when the things move.
Nah, I have no idea.
I think it's called convection.
Yeah, let's keep it on ball here. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's interesting. We learned something new. Hopefully you did too.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what we were talking about. Darius Slay.
Darius Slay. Do you want to jump to the Keep 4 Cup 4 or what?
Real quick, Rasheed Walker, like we mentioned, a player who we thought could get up to $20 million a year, not because we thought that, but because that's what was widely projected. Only gets 1 year, $4 million plus incentives from the Panthers. Kind of crazy. Generally speaking, I don't know where the disconnect was from either the projection or where he ended up going, but I know that is a player who I'm looking at and going, man, I would have done that. So,
sure.
And then wide receiver Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins traded to the Denver Broncos for pick numbers 30, 94, and 130.
I saw somebody, I forgot who said this, so forgive me, but I think Waddle and JMO are, I mean, obviously both fast, but I think they're probably like similar caliber of receivers at this point. Mm-hmm. I think Waddle's had a higher peak, but like in terms of the last 2 years, they're around the same. Like if the Lions, for whatever reason, tomorrow had to trade JMO, would you be satisfied with a haul? So in addition to Waddle, they attached a 4th rounder to him and got a 4th rounder back. So pretend that's a wash. Would you be satisfied with a 1st and a 3rd for JMO? Because I tried to put that in perspective. Like if I was a Dolphins follower, would I be pleased or upset? And obviously different situations. The Dolphins are in a total tear it down rebuild and the Lions are trying to win a Super Bowl. So different. But if the Lions traded for JMO and got a 1st and a 3rd, like does that feel right? Or does that feel light? Or does that feel heavy? Like
I think that feels probably right. Like
I think I agree.
Like he's a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, I agree.
Those are hard to find.
I think if anything, like,
and he's still super young. He's like 25, 26, or he might even be younger than that.
I think he's like 24. He like I'd lean, and maybe this.
Yeah, he's 24.
Yeah,
turns 26 later on this month.
Maybe it's just because like I'm like closer to the Lions, and like I see his role obviously on the field and then off the field, like how beloved he is and all that. But even like I think knowing how like the trade market works in the NFL, like and how often guys get traded for like mid-round picks and whatnot, like it is probably right, but it would feel like dang, like a 1st and a borderline top 100 pick for like a guy that's like a consistent 1,000-yard receiver for
the fastest man alive,
right? And like I'm sure Dolphins fans kind of feel the same way about Waddle. Just an interesting thought that I had. Like, I wonder how Dolphins fans feel about it.
I think if you're a Dolphins fan, well,
different situations, of course. Like I said,
definitely.
Yeah. The Dolphins are tearing it down.
Yeah, we don't need to get into all that.
Which, by the way, poor Malik Willis, man. Yeah. Granted, he got paid. He got like $40-50 million guaranteed. So like, good for him. Like he made it. He got that big second contract in the NFL. But man, that sucks. Like he's going to a team that is probably trying to lose.
Right, but I think, being aligned with the head coach and it being both your first year there, I think buys you a little bit of grace to be like very, very stinky in year one. Not that you want to be stinky in year one, but I think the environment that they're creating is relatively, I don't want to say pressure free, but
sure.
We understand. Watch it from afar.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to Keep 4, Cut 4. Today's episode, I'm going to give Rich a topic, and I have 8 players, and he's going to have to decide in real time whether to keep or cut those players. Today's topic with St. Patrick's Day in the immediate rear view mirror. By the way, I made a corned beef yesterday. It was absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Notre Dame football players, and we can take their NFL careers into account here.
Oh, we can. Okay.
I was going to do like overlap, like Notre Dame and Detroit Lions players, but I thought it would just be a little bit easier to just do like names, guys, or names everybody knows. You know,
so I'm doing
get a little thin on that list.
I'm doing football careers, right? To
be fair. Okay. The totality of the career. Okay. We are starting with Detroit native running back Jerome Bettis.
Wow. That's
Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, one for the thumb, Super Bowl XL, Detroit, Michigan.
The problem is that like a lot of good players went to Notre Dame, and I feel like you're trying to give me like a good. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, like you know what I mean. Like I feel like you're trying to give me a good player to start off with a keep and put me behind the 8 ball. He's multi-time All-Pro, ran for 1,000 yards like 8 times. I'm gonna keep him. I can't start off a list cutting a Hall of Famer. That's one.
Okay.
Super Bowls.
There we go. Up next, we have wide receiver Golden Tate.
1 Super Bowl. Anyway, Golden Tate. I like Golden Tate. Golden Tate was on the last few years that I was a fan of the Giants. He was on those teams. He had Eli Manning throwing him the ball for a little bit. I'm gonna cut Golden Tate though. Fun player. I remember him a lot for his taunting on his way into the end zone, backpedaling and flipping and doing all that. But I'm going to cut Golden Tate.
Okay. Up next, we have safety Kyle Hamilton, Rich's favorite player.
Well, I mean, I think he's really good.
There's nothing wrong with that. Just say you like him.
You gave me a Hall of Famer, so I'm going to cut Kyle Hamilton. Also, for the same thinking of like, I think you're trying to like, I like Kyle Hamilton, so you really want me to keep him, and you're gonna give me 5 Hall of Famers, so I'm gonna cut Kyle Hamilton.
All right, up next we have defensive tackle, Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, Alan Page from the Purple People Eaters.
Heck yeah, we're keeping him.
It's just a name that makes you think of NFL films. You know?
True. Yeah.
Down in Lambeau Field. The Minnesota Vikings have come to claim their territory in the north. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you're keeping Alan Page.
Yeah, 148.5 career sacks. That's a guy we keep.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Quarterback Joe Theismann.
Joe Theismann. I feel like he's right on the edge to me. Like it.
2-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl
MVP
with Washington, and an MVP.
He was an MVP in his age 34 season. He was an MVP.
Shout out. The most famous broken leg in NFL history.
True. That's true. Perhaps should be taken into account. The Washington went 14-2 that year. Where did the run end? In the Super Bowl to the Raiders. They got smoked by 29 points. Cutting an MVP would be hard, but again, like I've got 2 Hall of Famers over there, so like, should I keep a Hall of Fame exclusive? I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna cut Joe Theismann.
Okay. Up next, running back Tim Brown.
See, this is. I think if I want to continue keeping the Hall of Fame club, I'm not even really going to think about it.
9-time Pro Bowler, all 90s team, Hall of Famer.
Continue the Hall of Fame club. Doesn't have the All Pros that the other guys have, but I don't care.
Honestly, I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
Tim Brown, I did not realize. You know how like everything that happens before you were born doesn't not before I was born. Because some of his career happened while I was, cognizant of the world. But like the majority of Tim Brown's career happened before I had a functioning memory.
Sure.
And so like whenever that happens, like he could have played 10 years before I was born. He could have played 40 years before I was born. It really doesn't make a difference in my brain. That's just how it works. Tim Brown played till 2004.
Yeah.
Is that surprising to you at all?
Yes, I'm surprised that he played into my lifetime.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Up next.
2 names left.
Now this is going to be a tough one.
I'm going to be honest. If the name you give me is a Hall of Famer, I'm keeping him.
It's not a Hall of Famer, but it's somebody he might be in the Richard Silva Hall of Fame because he helped deliver, 2 Super Bowls to the New York Giants. He is defensive lineman Justin Tuck.
That is certainly a tough one. You're tugging at the heartstrings. Spent about a decade in New York, like you said. Helped them win 2 Super Bowls. Was an AP first teamer 1 year. I'm sadly going to cut Justin Tuck.
Dang.
Because I would have kept Joe Theismann over him. So I'm keeping the last name you give me.
Well, you done good because the last name I'm giving you is one Joe Cool Montana from the San Francisco 49ers. So great job.
I went 8 for
Sometimes
8.
you just got to tip your cap. I had no argument from me. You went 8 for 8. You crushed it.
He really tried to give me guys I like. He said, "Oh yeah, you like Kyle Hamilton? You value versatile safeties? Cut him then." "Oh, you like Justin Tuck? You grew up a fan of the New York Giants? Cut him then." And I did.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
Hand up. You got me. I got. All right. Thank you to everybody for listening to today's episode. Anything else that you want to say to the people before we tell them goodbye?
No. Shout out to Justin Tuck.
Shout out to Justin Tuck. Thank you so much for listening. I'm on Twitter at Nolan Bianchi. He's at Rich_Silva18. Stay locked into DetroitNews.com. We are your one-stop shop for all Detroit Lions needs. We'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place. Thanks for listening.